Parvati Bhagini, Hari Om, you can start.
Hari Om. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitaamrutavarshiniim Bhagavati Ashtadashadhyayiniim Ambatvāmanusandadhāmi Bhagavad-gīte bhavadveshiniim Namostu te Vyasavishala-buddhe Pullara-vindayata-patra-netra Yena tvaya bharata-taila-purnaha Prajvalito jnana-maya pradipaha Prapanna-parijataya Stotravetraikapanaya Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gītāmrutaduhe Namaha Sarvopanishado Gavo Dobdha Gopalanandanaha Partho Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta Dugdham Gītāmrutam Mahat Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Bhishmadrona-tata Jayadratha-jala Gandhara-nilotpala Shalyagrahawati Kripena Vahani Karnena Velakula Ashwathama Vikarna Ghora Makara Duryodhana Vartini Sotirna Khalu Pandavairana Nadi Kaivartaka Keshavaha Parashariyavacha Sarojamamalam Geetartha Gandhotkatam Nanakhyanaka-kesaram harikatha Sambodhana bodhitam Loke sajjana shatpadairaharaha Pepiyamanam muda Bhuyad bharata pankajam kalimala Pradhvamsina shreyase Mukam karoti vachalam Pangullanghayate girim Yat kripa tamaham vande Paramananda madhavam Yam brahma varunendra rudra marutaha Tunvanti divyaistavaihi Vedai sangapadakramopanishadaihi Gayanti yam samagaha Dhyanavastita tadgatena manasa Pashyanti yam yoginaha Yasyantam navidussura suraganaha Devaya tasmai namaha. Hari Om.
Dhanyavadaha Bhagini. We'll just start in a minute. सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ परं वरिष्ठं ब्रह्मिष्ठं परमानन्दरूपिणं परमार्थानन्दयतिं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्। So, in the last class, we completed the 13th chapter of the Gita, and now we have to enter into the 14th chapter. It's a very small chapter with 27 verses, and it is titled Gunatraya Vibhaga Yogaha. In this chapter, Lord Krishna is going to develop the teaching based on the teaching that he had given in the 13th chapter. I discussed that during the summary also. A corollary is extracted and Lord Krishna builds up on that and discusses this from the standpoint of a spiritual sadhana. So the portion that Lord Krishna takes for elaboration is the topic of Purusha and Prakriti, the spiritual and material principle being the cause of the whole creation. This was specifically discussed from 20th verse to the 24th verse of the 13th chapter, right? Starting from Prakritim Purusham Chaiva all the way up to Karanam Guna Sangosya. In 3 verses, Krishna had spoken about this in the 13th chapter, and these verses are going to be the development, right? There's going to be the basis of the development of the 14th chapter. So we should remember some of the points that we discussed. I in fact spent half an hour in the last class giving you some background about the creation, etc., because we need to understand that as we get into this chapter. Okay, so few things we must remember. One is both Purusha and Prakriti are Anadi or beginningless principle. Purushaha is known popularly in the Upanishad as Brahman, and Prakriti is popularly known as Maya. Brahman and Maya alone have been presented as Purusha and Prakriti, Purusha being the consciousness principle and Prakriti being the matter principle. And now we also know that they have diagonally opposite features. Purushaha is without CAD, changes, attributes and divisions, while Maya is endowed with CAD. Prakriti is endowed with changes, attributes and division, right? So consciousness is free from all the three. It is nirvikaram, nirgunam and nishkalam, right? So of this we are going to focus on the middle attribute, characteristic, I should say characteristic of Brahman, which is nirgunatvam, right? Purushaha is nirguna tattvam, which will be actually called in the 14th chapter as gunatitaha. Basically, the nirguna Purushaha of the 13th chapter will be renamed as the gunatitaha here. Okay, so gunatitaha means transcending the guna. Both are basically one and the same, right? Whereas we actually saw that Prakriti is subject to change, Prakriti is full of guna, etc., right? So we are going to look at Purusha as gunatitaha and the guna aspects of Prakriti, which is endowed with attributes. Here we call it sagunatvam, right? So we are going to see the gunas, right? And we introduced this, we saw this in the last class. The 3 gunas are satva guna, rajo guna and tamo guna. Gunatraya vishishta prakriti. So from this prakriti, trigunatmika maya prakriti alone, the whole universe has evolved. Therefore, prakriti is karanam, the whole universe is karyam. So the product of the world, the body, everything is a product of prakriti, right? So even body-mind complex, I showed you in the last class, is evolving only from Prakriti, right? So karya karana kartrutve hetu prakriti ruchyate. We saw in the 13th chapter, right? We saw that in the verse 21. Body, karanam, means mind and senses. Body, mind and senses are all products of prakriti. Therefore, Shastra points out, actually thereafter Shastra points out, right, that the prakriti maya tattvam is actually trigunatmika, composes of three gunas, right? And this is exactly what is going to get presented in the 14th chapter. It is going to evolve from the 13th chapter, basically from the prakriti purusha. It is going to expand on prakriti being trigunatmika, right? So we can take this as an basically the discussion in the 13th chapter, these three verses, you can take it as an introduction to the 14th chapter, right? So in Shastra, it points out, right, that the attribute or the nature of the Karanam always inheres the Karyam or products, right? So in Sanskrit, it is presented as Karana Gunaha Karya Anuvartante. That means the features of the cause inheres in the effect also, exactly like taking gold and making ornaments out of it, right? So if the gold is cause of the ornaments will be golden or something else. They have to be only golden, right? So the nature of gold inheres in the ornaments also, right? So what we are saying here is the Karanam's features will be transmitted to the Karyam also. A very close example, right, is you see the grandparents, parents' features in the children. Not only that, we also see some prodigies in the family based on, the father or the grandfather being a musician. The child is able to identify ragas at the age of 1, 2, etc. Even when the speech starts, they are able to identify the ragas, right? So basically, the Karana's features get transmitted to the Karyam also. So Karanam Gunaha Karye Anuvartante. So Prakriti has got three gunas. Therefore, Shastra says the entire universe is pervaded by the three gunas. Therefore, if you remember Tattva Bodha, right, what we did, that is Introduction to Vedanta. In fact, I repeated it in the last class also. We saw that because Maya is Trigunatmika, the Pancha Bhutani that evolves from Maya is also Trigunatmika. And from that, the Pancha Sukshma Bhutani evolve from the Pancha Stula Bhutani. From Maya Tattvam, Pancha Sukshma Bhutani evolve. From Pancha Sukshma Bhutani, Pancha Stula Bhutani evolve. Therefore, all of them have the trigunas running in and through them. And because our body-mind complex, our Pancha Jnanendriyani, Karmendriyani, all of them are born out of the Pancha Sukshma Bhutani, and then of course they become Stula Shariram itself. They are all Trigunatmika. Very important corollary, right? So therefore, every individual, from the standpoint of the body, mind, sense complex, every individual is a mixture of three gunas. So Lord Krishna says, even though all individuals, including animals and plants, have the three gunas, the proportion of the gunas will vary from individual to individual, depending upon several factors, including the Purva Janma. Because we are carrying the gunas from the previous, not just the previous Janma, infinite previous Janmas. Our actions, our thoughts, all of them will influence the proportion of the gunas. So based on that, a person can either be Sattva Pradhana or Rajas Pradhana or Tamah Pradhana, right? So basically Sattva Pradhana, Raja Pradhana or Tamah Pradhana. A person can be Satvika, Rajasika, Tamasika. So these three gunas express in the form of three different faculties. We have seen this also before. Sattva guna expresses in the form of increased knowing faculty. That means all the Jnanendriyanis will be highly alert and active. So Sattva Guna Pradhana will be Jnanendriya Pradhana. he will be endowed with knowing faculty. Whereas Raja Guna Pradana will express in the form of doing faculty, Karmendriya Pradana, right? So, you know Jnanendriyani and Karmendriyani. I just in fact revised in the last class, right? But it is always very useful to go back and revise these slides from Introduction to Vedanta, okay? So, Sattva Guna Pradana Jnanendriyani and Rajo Guna Pradana or Karmendriya Pradana, right? The other one. Knowing and doing. Whereas Tamo Guna will be the suppression of both the faculties, which means what? Knowing faculty is also suppressed, doing faculty is also suppressed. This means there is more of inertia, laziness, idleness, right? Indolence. And if that person is a human being, then he will be very, very close to an animal, right? Which is just hibernating most of the time, etc. Right? So I just eat, sleep, again become hungry, eat, sleep. That's the extreme end, right? So therefore, idleness or inertia, right, is what is connected with the tamo guna, right? So all of these basically have various expressions, and you can see the expressions in the living beings, and the three gunas are in different proportions. We must remember that, right? And the proportion is different, and we saw this in the 4th chapter, if you remember. Chaturvanyam maya srishtam gunakarma vibhagashah tasya kartaram apimam vidya kartaram apyayam. So in the 4th chapter, we saw about how these gunas play a role in the kind of varna, in the kind of, you know, the guna brahmana, guna kshatriya, guna vaishya, etc. We saw that in detail, right? So, okay. So, what were the personality types? There, just a quick recap. Lord Krishna divided the entire humanity into 4 types. Type 1, type 2, type 3 and type 4. This is very important. Please make sure you note down. First, we broadly divide the humanity into 3 types. What are the 3? Right? Satvika, Rajasika and Tamasika. Right? In simple English, Tamasika means very sleepy, idle, inactive, not having too much of enthusiasm to do anything. Right? Rajasika is active type and Satvika is given to thinking, analyzing, exploring, etc. Right? So, Swami Chinmayananda apparently gives this example. Apples keep falling from the trees, right? Why suddenly, what would a person do if the apple is tasty? They would eat it. Why for Newton alone, it triggered some thoughts and he started doing research and he found out, you know, gravitational force, etc. Right? So there is something different in him, in his guna, right? So that is the contemplative kind of guna, right? So we had 3 types, which is Satvika, Tamasika and Rajasika, right? Now, in the middle one, the Rajasika active type, that itself is subdivided into 2. Why? Because the active one, the Rajasika one, can have 2 possibilities. You can either be selfishly active, which means self-centered, selfish, doing things actively for me, myself, my family, to earn money and, you know, hoard it and possess everything. That is one extreme, right? The other is being selflessly active, constantly doing things for the society, for the world at large, right? You don't even save money, do spend everything on, you know, in some activity or the other, or you will be in between this, right? So there is a selfishly active and a selflessly active, right? So there are 2 types, subtypes within the Rajoguna itself, and then you have Tamoguna, right? So these are the 4 types. I can tell you one thing, because of my background, there are so many papers analyzing this now, and they are trying to see if they can draw some management lessons out of it, because you can choose the right kind of profession based on these personality types, etc. We are not going there because this is not a session on, you know, that, but it's important and very nice to know that it can be divided into 4 types. The first type, right, being TRS, tamo guna pradana, then little bit of rajo, and then satva, right? So that is type 1, right? So that is the type 1 kind. And then the type 2 is rajoguna pradana, but self-centric. Therefore, while rajoguna is pradana, next comes tamoguna and next comes sattva guna, right? That's why it is more of selfishness or self-centric. Type 3 is RST, rajoguna pradana, but selfless. So it is RST. There is sattva guna component which is more in proportion as compared to tamo guna along with rajoguna. Okay. Then you have the fourth one, which is SRT, the sattva guna pradana, with rajoguna being in greater proportion and less of tamo guna, right? So basically in type 2 and 3 rajoguna is predominant, except that in type 3 sattva guna generates noble thoughts, and therefore even though active, he always thinks how he can do more and more to others. He wants to earn more and more, and he wants to share also more and more, right? But the type 4, as we saw, is the sattva guna pradana, which is highly contemplative, right? So thus 4 types Lord Krishna mentioned in the 4th chapter. I've just presented it this way so that it's easy for you to remember. I will be using the words type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4. So please do remember them, right? Type 1 is tamo guna pradana. Type 2 is rajo guna pradana, self-centric. Type 3 is rajo guna pradana, selflessly. And type 4 is sattva guna pradana, right? So in the 4th chapter, this is what he spoke about. Chaturvarnyam maya srishtam guna karma vibhagayoho. So now Lord Krishna wants to talk about the spiritual journey of a person who is at the lowest rung of the ladder. All of us need not be at the lowest rung. But assuming there are people who are in type 1, the TRS kind, right? Type 1 can never jump to type 4, right? It's very difficult. The leap is very big, right? So the spiritual journey is that journey. So how does this transition take place? The aim of the type 1, right, the indolent, the lazy, the idle one should be to take up sakama karma pradana karma yoga. Are you now able to get the big picture? Sakama karma pradana karma yoga. So may you do activity for the sake of fulfilling worldly desires, right? Like exactly like, you give a carrot, right? You hold the carrot. Or for the children, you say, do homework, I'll give you chocolates, right? Some incentive, right? So here we say, we promote sakama karma. We say, do this, you will get this. You go to this temple, you will get this, no problem. At least let this person get up and do something, right? Let him be active, right? Thus type 1 through sakama pradana karma yoga. Then he becomes type 2 gradually. The type 2 people should aim at what, right? They should gradually take to type 3 by taking nishkama pradana karma yoga. First of all, doing prayers and changing the bhavana to say sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, not just me, myself, my family, right? From there, can we make that one step saying sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. I am doing this prayer for the sake of everybody's welfare, right? So, Pujya Swamiji, Dayananda Swamiji says, from grabbing personality, can we move to a little bit of a giving personality? Okay. So, because the ultimate spiritual goal, right, in type 4 is na karmana na prajaya na dhanena tyage naike amrutatva manashuhu. So, material success isn't getting more, but spiritual success in giving more. Therefore, sakama to nishkama karma pradana, right? The type 2 will go to type 3. Now, type 3's aim should be what? To become type 4 by taking to meditation. An active life will make the mind more and more extrovert. An extrovert mind will find it difficult to understand the Atma Swarupam, right? That is why in Lalita Sahasranamam, Antarmukha Samaradhya Bahirmukha Durlabhaha. For an extroverted mind, spiritual growth becomes difficult. Therefore, enough of activity gradually may you learn to relax. And as Swamiji puts it, that is why the retirement age is also kept. But unfortunately, people don't spend that time. Even at that time, they want to, be busy with other things, right? That is how the society is today, right? So I should be able to relax and meditate, because if I have too much of Rajoguna, it is impossible to meditate. So that is why practically, after experiencing this issue, I feel as active people, the least we can do is try and attempt meditation early in the morning. If we have to get up 15 minutes early or 30 minutes early is okay, but at least we can try and do some amount of contemplative meditation in the early morning, right? So ultimately the goal is to go to type 4, which is sattva guna pradhana, right? So basically you to go there, and it is basically saguna upasana, we must remember. Saguna Ishwara Japa, right, in meditation. And so that the Rajasic mind can become Satvika mind. So the RTS becomes RST, and then it becomes SRT, or Sattva Guna Pradhana, right? So Lord Krishna actually said in the 6th chapter of the Gita, Arurukshor Muner Yogam Karma Karana Uchyate Yogarudasya Tasyeva Shamaha Karana Uchyate. Shamaha, right? Mental poise, quietude, right? You should become more and more active in the first phase. In the second phase, you should learn to withdraw. Pravritti to nivritti is contemplation, which means Vedanta, Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasanam, right? So the type 4, the Sattvic type, the contemplative type have to come to Vedanta, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasanam by understanding that all these 3 gunas are 3 types of bondages only. In fact, in Sanskrit language, the word gunaha has got several meanings. One is character, right? Personality. But gunaha also means shackle, chain, or a rope. And Lord Krishna says all the 3 gunas will bind. If one is an iron chain, another is a silver chain, and the third is a golden chain. But golden chain is also a chain. Therefore, type 4, which is Sattva Guna Pradhana, has to do Vedanta, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasanam, and through them transcend the 3 gunas which belongs to Prakriti, or the body-mind complex. So body-mind is a product of Prakriti, and therefore one should transcend the Prakriti, transcend the 3 gunas, and become Gunatitaha. The Jnaninaha are Gunatitaha, right? That's the journey. So the journey is what? Depending on where you are, tamo guna to rajo guna to sattva guna to gunatitaha is the journey, right? That is the moksha, right? So this is the type 5 basically. You can add it if you want. That is why I put it here, right? The first 4 are related to guna, and the 5th is transcending all the gunas, right? So what is the advantage of being a gunatita? The advantage is we will use all the 3 gunas appropriately without being bound by them. Using the guna without binding is moksha, right? So this is going to be the analysis of the 14th chapter, for which the foundation was laid in 20, 21 and 22 of chapter 13. Guna Sangha Bandhanam, it is said. Guna Sangaha means attachment to Prakriti is bondage. Detachment from Prakriti is liberation, right? So with this background, let us enter the chapter proper. Shri Bhagavanuvacha, Shri Bhagavanuvacha, Param Bhuya Pravakshyami, Param Bhuya Pravakshyami, Jnananam Jnanamuttamam, Jnananam Jnanamuttamam, Yajñātva Munayas Sarve, Yajñātva Munayas Sarve, Param Siddhimito Gataha, Param Siddhimito Gataha. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Arjuna does not ask any question in the first shloka of the 14th chapter. Lord Krishna himself volunteers to analyze further, because the 3 verses of the 13th chapter has a scope for elaboration, but Krishna volunteers, right? So that what can we do with this analysis? We can determine the type, what we are, and then what is the sadhana that we require, right? So we can focus more on a particular sadhana, right, which will help the Vedantic student moving forward in the spiritual journey. Therefore, from sadhana angle, the 14th chapter is very, very important. But the most important point is we should use the 14th chapter to find out where we stand. Never use the 14th chapter to label others within the family, right? Or other Vedantic classmates, right? Or others in general, right? He's type 1, that is not correct. Or he's type 2, type 3. This is totally against the management principles where we, use lot of personality tests. But the good thing I would say is, if a person is able to make a self-assessment of where he or she stands, then he or she can choose the career path or the role, right? That is where it comes in useful, but it is a self-assessment and it's not a tool that should be used by one to judge others, right? Very important. Therefore, never commit the mistake of judging others. Swamiji keeps on warning, right? So, we can judge ourselves so that we can focus on the appropriate sadhana and gradually climb the ladder and attain moksha. Therefore, Lord Krishna says, Bhuyaha pravakshyami. I shall talk once again. Uttamam paramam jnanam. Uttamam param jnanam means the highest knowledge of gunatita purushaha, right? In the Mundaka Upanishad, it's called Paravidya, right? So that is translated as Parajnanam, the highest knowledge, right? Brahma Jnanam, Atma Jnanam, right? Other than Brahma Jnanam, every other knowledge comes under Aparavidya or materialistic science or studies only, right? So the glory of this Purusha or Brahma Jnanam, Uttamam Jnanam, is the greatest knowledge. Why? Because the knowledge of Purusha liberates a person by taking him beyond the gunas, right? All other knowledge will keep me hovering around one of the 3 gunas only, one or more, a mixture. There is only horizontal movement in the materialistic plane. There is no vertical movement. Right? This is the only knowledge which helps me to transcend the 3 gunas, identify with Brahman and become gunatita, the only way to get liberation. So Shankaracharya says, Uttama phalatvat, Uttamam jnanam, paravishayatvat, param jnanam, paravishayatvat, uttama phalatvat, param uttamam jnanam. Basically, this is in short, the spiritual knowledge, right? Is the greatest one, jnananam, among all branches of knowledge, right? This is not a new knowledge, Arjuna, that I am introducing to you, right? But except that it is already there in the Vedas, it has been there from Anadi Kala, and I have extracted this. Saropanishado gavo dogda gopalanandanaha from the Gita Dhyana Slokah. All of the Upanishads, I have extracted this, right? Knowledge, right? So you will get your liberation not after death, but here and now, if you're able to transcend the gunas. Jnatva sarve munayah. The saintly wise people in the past have attained the param siddhim gataha, have attained the highest goal of life, namely moksha, which is superior to dharma, artha and kama, right? Money will come, money will get exhausted, right? So always you have this tension, because once you retire, there is only expenditure, right? So there is no income. So we get very concerned, right? It will always come and go. Sense pleasures will also come, sense pleasures will go, because the sense organs will also start deteriorating. Punyam is also exhaustible. So all of them are finite, fleeting, perishable ones. Moksha is the greatest, which is called para siddhihi, param siddhihi. Not only that, they enjoy jivan muktihi itah paragataha. After death also they are freed from the shackles of samsara. While living also they are liberated. They have, because after death they have become one with Ishvara, which is called videha mukti. First jivan mukti, then videha mukti. Itaha means maranantaram videha muktim gataha. Thus both jivan mukti and videha mukti are there for the gunatita purusha jnanam. Right? That is explained further in the next verse. Idam jnanamupashritya mama sadarmyamagataha sarge pinopajayante pralayena vyatanti cha. So, idam jnanam upashritya. By resorting to this gunatita purusha jnanam, upashritya, by making use of, resorting, mama sadharmyam agataha. They have attained the nature which is very, very similar or same as the nature of me, mama sadharmyam, right? So, Lord Krishna is using the word me because my nature, it means God's nature, divine nature. Therefore, Jnaninaha have discovered that they have a nature which is the same as Ishvara Swabhavam. Right? In short, Jivatma, Paramatma, Aikyam Agataha. Therefore, Sadharmyam means Aikyam. Aikyam means oneness, which was referred in the 13th chapter. There was a Mahavakya Shloka, if you remember, Kshetrajnam Chapimam Viddhi. Right? So the message was, Lord Krishna is now reminding, right? They become one with me, and that is what was there in the Mahavakyam, right? So when you say that Jnani becomes one with me, it is not really speaking becoming one with Lord, because according to Vedanta, our nature is same as God's nature all the time. So you don't become God's nature, right? So you must remember this all the time, because we're already one with the Lord. Then we say Jnani becomes one because of ignorance, we have created a division between Jivatma and Paramatma, which is not the actual division, but a seeming division caused by self-ignorance, right? That God is great, I'm a miserable individual. This is called Dasoham Bhavana. Dasaha Aham. I am small, helpless, right? So from this word, if you actually take out Dasoham, right? I remove the first letter Da, then it becomes Soham, right? Saha Aham. That's a mantra. Soham. If you reverse Soham, you get Hamsaha, right? So they talk about Soham. Soham means what? I am that God. I am Brahman, right? Saha Aham. So the difference is only superficial between the Jivatma and Paramatma, like the difference between wave and ocean, which we have seen so many times, right? Therefore, through Jnanam, the Jnani discovers oneness. Mama sadharmyam agataha, right? Sarge pina upajayante. They are out of the cycle of birth and death. In Prakriti, birth and death cannot be avoided, right? Because nature of matter is, it will continuously appear and disappear. And body is made up of matter. It has appeared and gradually it is undergoing change. One day the body will die, right? Mortality is inevitable in Prakriti. So if I have to attain immortality, right, you cannot continue to be stationed in Prakriti, right? Identifying with the Purusha, right? Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma, Amritangamaya. Thus Jnani attains immortality. Na upajayante, they are not born in the next Srishti, right? In the next lot, they are not pushed again, right? Pralayena vyatanticha. During pralayam, they don't have the fear of death also. They don't have the fear of rebirth also, right? Both are fearful, having to take a rebirth as well as to die, right? So everyone is afraid of punarjanma because we don't know what is in store for us in the next janma. The unpredictability of the future, the uncontrollability, right, is what makes us anxious. What will happen to my spouse? What will happen to my child? What will I do? My grandchildren, etc. Right? So always we are worried about what will happen, right? So sarge api nopajayante pralayena vyatanti cha. By abiding in the Purusha, he transcends desha and kala, because desha and kala are associated with prakriti only. As long as I am caught up in prakriti, time and place will influence me. And once who abide in Purusha, Brahman, transcend desha kala or mortality, right? There is no marana bhayam, there is no punarjanma bhayam, right? There is no bhayam. These are the two powerful expressions of samsara and freedom from bhayam, right? So in fact, the Upanishad says, Abhayam Pratishtam Vindate. Right? So, continuing. Mama yo nirmahat brahma. Mama yo nirmahat brahma. Tasmin garbham dadamyaham. Tasmin garbham dadamyaham. Sambhavas sarva bhutanam. Sambhavas sarva bhutanam. Tato bhavati bharata. Tato bhavati bharata. So, as I said, the 14th chapter is the elaboration of those shlokas of the 13th chapter, 122, etc. So, where we dealt with Purusha and Prakriti, right? Now, consciousness and matter put together is referred as Ishvara, right? So, the universe has evolved from Ishvara, and Lord Krishna is in this shloka. So, here Lord Krishna identifies with the Purusha Tattvam or consciousness principle and says, I am the Purusha, the Chaitanyam, like the father of the creation. So consciousness is compared to the father of the creation, right? Don't take it either in a negative sense or in the positive sense, right? It is just that Narishwara Tattva is being, brought in here, right? So in the creation, the mother carries the child in the body, right? So similarly, Prakriti alone carries the entire universe within itself. Since it is the carrier of the universe, the Maya Tattvam, is referred to as the mother principle. Therefore, Lord Krishna says, right, I am like the father, the Purusha Tattvam, the consciousness principle, and I have got the mother principle also like Ardhanarishwara, right, the Maya Tattvam, right, and Prakriti is also part of me, and therefore he says Mama Yonihi. Here, Yoni refers to Prakriti, the female principle, right, the universal mother. Literally, the word Yonihi means womb. Here the womb represents the mother principle, Mahat Brahma, right? Therefore, we have to carefully note the word Brahma refers to Prakriti Tattvam, not Purusha here, right? We have to be very careful here. The word Brahma here refers to Prakriti Tattvam and not Purusha. Normally, Brahman refers to Chaitanya Tattvam, right? Here it refers, Brahma refers to Maya or Prakriti Tattvam. And what type of Prakriti? Mahat Brahma, which is huge because of the type of pregnancy the universal mother has. The local women have got pregnancy, few babies, one or more they carry, right? But the entire universe, which consists of all the species, the Jiva Rashi, right? As well as the inert Loka, right? Everything is there in the great womb, the great mother principle. And I am associated with it, Krishna says, right? At the appropriate time when the karma of all the living beings are ready, right? then alone I activate the prakriti. Otherwise, the whole prakriti will be in a balanced state of gunanam samyavastha pralayam. There's a definition of pralayam is gunanam samyavastha, the equilibrium of the three gunas, right? Because the karmas have not yet ripened. When the karmanis are ready, right? The which have come from anadi kala, anadi janma, right? So when they are ready, then the srishti starts, right? So the srishti is a cyclic process. We have seen that there's no beginning, no end. So we have to accept anadi samsara chakram, right? Never ask about when the first srishti came, right? Lord Krishna will tell that in the 15th chapter also. Narupamasyeha tatopalabhyate nanto na chadir na cha sampratishta ashwattamenam suviruda moolam asanga shastrena dridena chitva. There is no adi or antam, right? Now, if you ask a scientist when matter is created, he will say what? Matter can never be created or destroyed, right? Even before Big Bang, matter was there, but not in manifest form, right? It was in potential form. So, if matter can be anadi according to modern science, prakriti, which is also matter, is anadi according to Vedanta. We must note this. In that prakriti, the world is there and it is in potential form, and karmani are all dormant, and when the karma is ready, what happens? The prakriti gets activated by the Chaitanya Tattvam. The activation is called the formation of the reflected consciousness, or that becoming active. The reflected consciousness, do you remember? I had the triangular two sides diagram with a triangle, and I said that the consciousness is reflected in each of the sharirams, right? So prakriti gets activated by the chaitanyam tattvam, and the reflected consciousness becomes active. The reflected consciousness collectively called chidabhasaha. By the presence of the Chit Chaitanyam, it gives life to Prakriti, and Lord Krishna calls the conception of Prakriti, right? So he calls that, and he says it involves to the universe, right? And for that, the Purusha Tattvam is required, and he says, Lord Krishna says, I am that Purusha. What do? Tasmin Prakritim Garbham Dadami. I inject with life or chidabhasa or activation, and once it is activated, the equilibrium of the three gunas is disturbed, just as the Big Bang happens. Why should it happen at that time? Scientists have no answer. Remember that. They say it happened, right? They also use the word disturbance of equilibrium. We also use the word disturbance, right, of equilibrium. They don't have the law of karma. In Vedanta, we include the law of karma. Therefore, Krishna says, I, the Purusha, injects life into Prakriti. Garbham should be taken as the life. And once that is done, just as the pregnancy starts and gradually the pregnancy advances each month, there is gradual advancement, and at the appropriate time, the child comes. Similarly, Samashti Karanam Prapancha will gradually become Samashti Sukshma Prapancha, and that will become gradually Samashti Sthula Prapancha. Please, refer and relate to what I went through last week. Okay, so it is there in Tattva Bodha, it is there in the introduction to Vedanta. You can look it up also, right? So Karana Prapancha to Sukshma Prapancha to Sthula Prapancha, right, at the cosmic level. Then the subtle elements, then the gross elements or bhuta, the bhautika prapancham, right, becomes material, and therefore sarva bhutanam, all the living beings, right, emerge. That is why during Navaratri, which we just completed, the entire creation is represented in the form of that Golu, right? So what do? First, they keep the universal mother in the top, right? Thereafter, they keep, other things, other gods. Then after that, other human beings who have been saints, right? So it's on the superiority of the Janma itself. So the entire creation is represented with animals, normal human beings, then animals, then plants, then also the inanimate dolls, etc. They are also put in the bottommost step, right? So this order represents the maturity or the advancement of the creation itself, right? So one mother, the Prakriti alone, is appearing in the form of the entire universe, right? So Lord Krishna says, Sarva Bhutanam Sambhavaha. Sambhavaha means origin or evolution of the entire universe. Tataha, thereafter, Bhavati He Bharata. And notice that when the Prakriti transforms into the universe, the three gunas will also flow down, right? Because the Karyam will inherit the Karanam's gunas, right? Continuing. सर्वयोनिषु कौन्तेय सर्वयोनिषु कौन्तेय मूर्तयः सम्भवन्ति याः मूर्तयः सम्भवन्ति याः तासां ब्रह्म महद्योनिः तासां ब्रह्म महद्योनिः अहं बीजप्रदः पिता Aham bija pradapita. Now, what is the uniqueness of the universal mother Prakriti? Right? Now, the local mothers give birth to children of only one species. Human being can give birth to human children. Right? Monkeys to monkeys, cows to cows, 84 lakh species of living beings. They all can give birth to their own kind of species only. Whereas, this is a very special pregnancy and birth where 84 lakh species of living beings are born out of one Prakriti only. Therefore, Lord Krishna says, Sarva Yonishu. In this world, what we experience is different species of different living beings, right? So, that is Sarva Yonishu. Yav Murtaya Sambhavanti. Different living beings are born for all those 84 lakh species. The universal mother happens to be one only. Therefore, Tasam, for all of them, Mahat Brahma, the great Prakriti, right, is the mother, right? Brahman, Maya, the Prakriti is the mother, the universal mother, and that is the womb, is the cause of origination, right? Then, what does Brahman do? Krishna says, Aham Bija Pradapita. I am the cause for the conception of Prakriti. Conception should be understood as the activation of Prakriti to evolve into universe, right? And when we talk about the evolution, there's a very big difference between the Darwinian theory of evolution, right, and what we see here, right? So they talk about, Darwinians talk about the evolution, they talk about only one living being getting converted or changed according to the environment. Therefore, they talk about the evolution of living being to living being only. How matter evolved to life, Darwinian theory does not touch, right? Still, we don't have the answer to that question. Like Darwin talks about life, survival of the fittest, etc. Right? So, if you see the dogs in Himalaya, they have special fur coats which they have developed because they have to withstand the cold there. So, Darwinian theory talks about transformation, right, according to the external environment, but it never talks about how matter becomes life in the first place. They don't have an answer for that. How the chemistry became biochemistry, that's the biggest or most complex problem that the scientists face, right? So now even the test tube baby, so-called, right, is not really a test tube baby. They don't mix chemical ingredients and manufacture a baby, right? So very important to understand this point, right? Whereas Lord Krishna here says, Aham Bija Pradaha, I alone make Prakriti, create both the inert world as well as the sentient bodies. So basically what he's saying is, I am the one who is behind the consciousness tattvam. I am responsible for injecting the consciousness tattvam into the Prakriti or Maya. Now all these words are not really meant to be used beyond just understanding, right? Basically, in the presence of consciousness, when the karmas ripen, right, the equilibrium is shifted and the Maya starts developing or manifesting, right? So, now this is the introductory part that Krishna has been dealing with. Hereafter, the topic is going to come to the analysis. The topics are going to be analysis of the three gunas, right? We will have plus and minus points both discussed, right, in length. Continuing. Sattvam rajastama iti, sattvam rajastama iti, guna prakriti sambhavaha, guna prakriti sambhavaha, nibadnanti mahabaho, nibadnanti mahabaho, dehe dehinam avyayam, dehe dehinam avyayam. So, gunaha, sattvam, raja, tama iti, three gunas are there which don't belong to Purusha, but they belong to Prakriti. Threefold faculties born out of Prakriti. We saw this in the last class. The proportion will vary. Even the wall, right, has got all of them, but it is tamo guna pradhana. It has got inertia. In science, we study about inertia, right? So the wall has only inertia, or it doesn't have the capability to move or do anything, right? So they don't have Rajo guna or Sattva guna, right? Now, when you go to a plant life, right, they have a little bit of Rajo guna, very, very little, but they are also still deeply rooted. They don't move much, right? So you can see the difference, right? So in the human body, you see the mix of Rajoguna, Tamoguna and Sattvaguna. So all the jivas, right, have basically free will, very important point. But the free will cannot be expressed in plant life or in animal life. Only when the human life comes for the first time, right, basically the free will appear in the human life. So what is the corollary? Because we have had anadi janmas, we have been humans at some point in time, used our free will and accumulated karmas, right? So free will, you should remember, is there for animal and plant also, but they are not expressed, right? You don't make plans for the futures. Plants and animals don't make plans, right? So whereas we, the human beings, plan, okay, next year we have to go and study this, we have to write this exam, etc., right? So discriminate ones choose, right, what they want, right, and then direct their future, right? So different proportions of guna are there in each of the bodies, right? Which, so from Prakriti, this flows into each and every body, not only plants, animals, all human beings also. Nibadnanti mahabaho dehe dehinam avyayam. By presenting themselves in front of Purusha, right? Right? Maya, figuratively, right? In an attractive manner, by presenting itself in the presence of Purusha, evolves, right? So, therefore, the body-mind complex, right, are also evolved that way. They are actually not me, but they are evolving in the presence of me if I choose to identify with Brahman or the consciousness, right? So, Nibadnanti, basically, it binds the Purusha who is boundless, right? Purusha, right? To Maya, right? So, what happens? What is Krishna trying to say? The Purusha is getting bound within the body, is getting circumscribed, is getting imprisoned within the body wall, right? Instead of saying Nityaha, Sarvagataha, Tanuhu, Ahameva idagum sarvam, Aham sarva vyapakaha asti. Instead, what is happening? That Chaitanya Swarupam, right, through this Maya Tattvam which has evolved all of that, is now getting circumscribed in the body-mind complex, which is a product of Prakriti. And the body-mind starts saying and feeling trapped, right? And start saying that I am this, I am that, my emotions are like this, etc., right? So this bodily imprisonment which happens, right, is because Prakriti presents itself in this manner. And as we grow old, we enjoy, right? We enjoy our body, we glorify our body, we decorate our body, beautify our body, right? Because it is useful and nice. But when the old age comes, right, and all organs start giving varieties of problems, the very body appears as a trap, and we start praying to the Lord. What do we pray to the Lord? Anayasena maranam vina dainyena jivanam dehi me kripaya shambho tvai bhaktim achanchalam. So we start praying, right? Requesting Lord Shiva to give a peaceful death without bodily troubles, a life without any trouble, and total bhakti in Lord Shiva. So the very body which we were enjoying becomes a trap, responsible for creating a sense of limitation. So samsara is defined as that apurnatvam, that sense of apurnatvam, which is caused by deha, mana, abhimanaha, right? Therefore, the three gunas libadnanti, tie the purusha, the individual, right? Being dehe to the body, and whom does it tie? Dehinam. Dehi means gunatita purushaha, kshetrajna purushaha. That chaitanyam, right, here is called dehi. It is tied as it were, not actually tied, right? But it is getting identified with the body-mind complex, right? So the real nature of Dehi is Avyayam. So now it is appearing as if it is tied, right? There is no degeneration or anything as far as the Dehi goes, right? So we saw Najayate Mriyate Va Kadachit in the second chapter, right? So I am the eternal, immortal, all-pervading consciousness. But now, right, I am stuck. I am feeling a sense of limit because I am entrapped within the body-mind complex, and the trigunas keep me stuck in the anatma, right? Avyayam means the decayless atma is getting tied down because of the triguna, right? So we will stop here and we will enter into the analysis of the three gunas, and it will be divided into various types: the definition, the mode of binding, what is predominant in each person and how does it manifest, the travel after death of various kinds of proportions, and the consequence itself. We will see that in the subsequent classes. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Any questions? Yeah, personality type, whether types can be equated to the four categories, jatis. Yes, we saw whatever we saw in introduction to Vedanta, that is what you have to connect here, right? So basically the sattva guna pradhana is what we see in a guna brahmana. The rajo guna pradhana with tamas more, that is the selfish or what I refer to as the type 2 will be the guna vaishya, type 3 will be guna kshatriya, and type 4, as I said, will be guna brahmana. Type 1, which is tamo guna pradhana, will be guna shudra. So this is all guna based classification in the varnashrama dharma, if you see. And is the guna passed on from one birth to another along with the sukshma shariram? Definitely. That is why, and they also say, even in we read in so many other philosophies, your thoughts are what determine the kind of action, right? And the actions is what determines the type of personality. So if you are able to direct the thoughts and you have control over your mind and you're able to use it in the right direction and is able to influence it, we're going to see all of that, and make it sattva pradhana, you have then progressed in the spiritual journey. And it doesn't matter whether you are able to complete your spiritual journey in this janma or not. Progress is a definite progress, and the progress you will take with you through the Sukshma Sharira. Very good point. And the gunas can definitely be changed. There's a question on, whether it can get modified. Yes, you can consciously look at it, cultivate values. And we saw some values in the 13th chapter. We're going to see some more values also. Daivi Sampat we are going to see. And Asuri Sampat, what should be avoided. Based on that, we can make a conscious effort to influence our guna. Definitely we can, and we can focus more and more on improving our sattva guna proportion. Yeah, anybody who has not gone through introduction to Vedanta on the sattva guna, rajo guna, the creation part, and the one on varnashrama dharma will find it a little difficult. That's why I did a revision in the last class also. Please go through those two classes for sure in the introduction to Vedanta portion. Does anybody else want to ask any questions? I don't see any raised hands here. Okay, so we will close here, and next week we will have class on 15th November, Sunday. It's after Diwali, so wish you all a very happy Diwali. Diwali Shubhashayah, Deepavali Shubhashayah. Dhanyavadaha. We will meet next week.